Hey everybody, welcome to Commercial Construction, Elevate the Industry podcast. I'm your host, Dave Presida, and I want to thank you for joining us today. We are in season number 4. This is the first episode of season 4, and when I started this, I had no idea we'd do 2 or 3. But here we are, 40 plus episodes later, and again, thanks for joining us. Today we have a special guest, and I mean that when I say it. This guy, he's an entrepreneur, but he's very down to earth. I've known him for several years. We used to compete. And because business changes and evolves, we met a few years ago. And spoiler alert here, we're going to talk about his history, but we're also going to talk about where he is today and about him selling his business. It's a big deal. So we're going to let Landon tell you about his experiences. And Landon, I want to welcome you to our podcast.
Thanks.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So Royals Commercial, you're the president, CEO, you were the founder. Were you the founder? Or
My father was.
Your father. How long ago?
1990. And he recruited me to come in sales, and we launched.
That's it. What did you do? What did he do when he started it?
He was a salesperson and then lost his own. The company he was working for couldn't service his accounts. They were out of Carolina and he was here in Maryland. So he recruited me to come into sales. The first day the crew quit and I became the crew.
You were the crew.
So I worked in the field, which is a great place to start. You learn the business from the ground up.
It is.
So I worked in the field for a little over a year and a half, and then I promoted myself up. We were doing core fill insulation, which is like shaving cream being injected in the block.
Right.
Home Depot's, Lowe's.
Wait a second. You started this business, then we're going to get to how you just sold it by putting foam in concrete blocks. Okay.
So majority of our clients were all masons, some GCs, but it was for insulation, sound, and fire rating.
Right.
So we were doing a couple million block a year at our peak.
That's just crazy.
Yes.
How things start, right? What did you do before that? I gotta ask.
I was a recruiter for Bridges of Georgetown.
So you weren't in the construction business?
I was not, but my dad had always been in construction. He was an entrepreneur. He had a paving business, and when I was in high school, he had an insulation company as well. So I worked there in the summers, installing fiberglass, cellulose, foam as well. So it was more residential.
Fast forward, what is it that you do today?
Today we are a specialized subcontracting firm doing air barriers, spray foam, caulk, with waterproofing, and some fire stopping materials.
So you've grown.
We've grown.
When did you take the business over?
I borrowed money from Elk Ridge Bank in '95 and bought my dad out.
That's crazy.
And he went off and launched another company.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
So
very exciting.
I knew your brother before you.
Yes.
I played tennis with your brother, who's a very good player. And I think he's right-handed and he serves left-handed or something. He's good. He's like a 4-5.
He has 2 forehands.
Yeah. Anyway, I knew about you from Steve Gordon and the Henry people.
And Marty Fisher.
Marty Fisher.
Yes.
A long time ago, and they always spoke well of you. We were competitors. We didn't often butt heads, but maybe more recently. But they always spoke well of you. You're a good guy. And I think it takes a good person because, we talked about it before we went on air. The best business people understand that their success has a lot to do with the people that they bring in.
Absolutely.
Talk about the people, who like your brother and other people that are key to your success.
Absolutely, my brother. We have guys that have been with us for 25 to 30 years. We're in our 33rd year right now. So people to me are what make a complete company. You take care of them, you treat them like family, we create a great culture. And in turn, you get loyalty back from them. So it's just been a great experience for me. We've grown to 75 employees now. We had 10. So it's a big difference. But again, it's the culture and the people to me that make an organization.
Well, you've attracted and kept good people, and that is a sign of a good company. So we're in we are in the same industry.
Yes.
We're friends now. We used to compete, whatever.
You took a couple nice jobs from me, by the way.
What's that?
We'll talk about that later.
So the cool part is that I'm consulting for a company now in Northern Virginia. We had a couple jobs in DC. We needed air barrier work.
Yes.
They said, call Landon Royals. That's how we met. I met you on a job down in DC.
You did.
Do you remember what happened that day? What we talked about?
We did. You mentioned, would you ever consider selling your company? And I said, well, I've been approached by multiple venture capital firms. Nothing ever, materialized. I just kind of brushed it away because I fear the unknown, if you will. One company wanted money up front, and it ended right there. So, but you did plant the seed.
It's interesting you say it that way because I sold my business years ago, and it was really because my partner was in the supply end, and we ended up selling to a public company. Mm-hmm. But I went to work for that public company, and then got to know one of their rivals during my days there, and they're the ones that ended up buying you. We'll get to that, but planted the seed. It's important because everybody gets hit with cold calls, with emails, with everything. And you just don't pay attention to it.
Yes.
So it's almost like you and I met, we knew kind of who each other was, and maybe you trusted at least what I was saying.
I did.
Because what we're trying to do is get people to take the first step. Like I didn't say, hey, Landon, sell your business. I said, Landon, why don't you find out more about selling your business, about an exit plan? Now, you are a successful contractor today. You were before you sold it, but we talk about exit planning, right? I mean, you've created so many good jobs, and it's created a good lifestyle for you and your family. But what is the next step? Did you know?
At that point, I did not have an exit plan. I kicked around an ESOP, but in talking to fellow entrepreneurs, it wasn't really the best avenue to go. So when you had mentioned it, we continued the conversation on a few weeks later. And you suggested that I meet the gentleman, Dick Vermer.
That's right. So, what we're doing here is with Landon in particular, it was great because we met another guy in the industry, I had you guys meet, who had sold his business also to the same company. And he turned out to be a pretty down-to-earth guy, right? Explain what happened at that meeting.
So who are you referring to?
Vic.
Oh, yeah, Vic, yes. So Vic invited me to come down and have coffee in DC. He was here for a conference, and I went down. I was a little apprehensive, again, fear the unknown, if you will. And I went and sat down. I was with him over an hour and a half, and he was very down to earth, asked a lot of great questions, and there was a lot of similarities between him and myself. So the barrier dropped for me from that angle, and I was open to exploring, as you said. Let's see what could be out there for you. You don't have to sell, but let's explore it. So you made the path very easy for me to go down for that.
And I want to be very clear, right? There's a lot of good private equity firms out there, venture capitalists. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about connecting contractors with other contractors who have the wherewithal to buy your company, right?
Correct.
Provided you with an exit plan. Now, before we get there was a lot of things that had to happen. First of all, you had to get comfortable, which you did.
I did.
Right? And understand, and I'm talking to you guys, understand that you're not deciding whether to sell your business or not. You're deciding whether to find out about the process. So the process, for you was to meet them.
Correct.
Right? And then it's like, okay, what do I look like financially?
Correct.
So tell me about that.
I had actually outgrown our accountant. When we were doing 4, 5, 6 million a year, he was perfect. But we were doing 10, close to 11, and he just couldn't keep up with our growth. So fortunately, you had introduced me to Larry, who, by the way, was a godsend and came in with his knowledge, his background, his experience on acquisitions. He stepped right in and just totally put me at ease, because it would not have happened with my past accountant. He just wasn't there. He couldn't do reviewed financial statements. He was behind on our taxes. So Larry really stepped in, and in a short period of time, got our information together and really made a great presentation.
I'm glad you said that, because, and I'm repeating what you said. You said without it, it wouldn't have happened. Now, a lot of companies out there, lots of entrepreneurs who may be listening to this are in the same boat. They have somebody they've dealt with a long time, probably a really good person. Maybe they've outgrown it. Or even more so, maybe their accounting firm doesn't really understand what a public company wants to see when they look at somebody's financials. Yes. Presentation is huge.
Absolutely.
So we brought Larry in, a third party, and Larry, and we're going to meet Larry in a second, but he got you ready for presentation.
Correct.
Right? And before we get to what happens after that, I want to bring in Larry Regan to say hello.
My name's Landon Royals. I'm president of Royals Commercial of Maryland. We are a local air barrier and spray foam contractor. A little over 3 years ago, I was approached and asked if I would be interested in selling my firm. I was very apprehensive. I've been approached in the past. But once I sat down with Dave and he explained the process, it became very clear that it was a viable option for me. He partnered with Larry Regan from Source One, who came in and really helped us from the financial side, cleaned up our books, and made us very presentable. And we were acquired in March of 2020. I recommend, if you're thinking about selling your firm, to work with Dave and Larry. They did a tremendous job. You can reach Dave at adacorp.com.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm here now joined with Larry Regan, a longtime friend and one of the co-founders of Source One Business Services. He's done a ton of things for me, and he was very integral in the deal that we did with Landon. I want to delve into that, but welcome back, Larry.
Thank you, Dave.
So, have you seen the podcast that you did yet, by the way?
I have.
Okay, you were
Thank
awesome.
you very much.
The little plug there.
You're a star.
So Landon
Yes.
was in a position where he's a very successful contractor, but I'm going to put words in your mouth. You weren't sure that you were sellable. A, your financials, what they look like. B, you just told us you outgrew your accountant.
Correct.
So I introduced you to Larry.
You did.
So Larry, tell us how you met and kind of what happened. Walk us through that.
Well, through your introduction, Landon and I eventually got together, and in my opinion, hit it off fairly well. Because if you don't like Landon,
you don't like anybody,
right?
That's a nice. Thank you.
Right. I mean that. And so we immediately jumped into the financial records of the company, and the financial records of the company were decent, but probably in a transaction just needed to be brought up to a little higher level. And it wasn't difficult to do that. Landon and his staff were very helpful, and we were able to do that. And at that point, the buyer was happy with the records that we were giving them through due diligence and their quality of earnings study. And the rest is history.
He's being very modest.
He is being very
because
modest. I agree.
Your financial records, although you're making money, they were not good.
They were not great. They were QuickBooks driven, but they were not at the level that an IBP looking at us would have accepted.
That's a good way to say it. Public company, they have different ways to measure things. And Larry, explain your background, why you were able to say, okay, this is what you look like now, without manipulating anything, but just changing the presentation. You gave them a picture of what this company was all about.
Because in this case, we were lucky to have a fantastic company with a fantastic owner and leader. So all we had to do was just rearrange the presentation. In my experience, there are times when you can do that all you want, and will never be a sellable entity because the business is not that good. So it's much more Landon's part than my part.
So you bring up a good point, because Larry and I do all these deals together. And there are some deals where I will send the information to Larry. I'm not a certified financial planner. That's what Larry does. But some companies that just aren't ready, right? They're not ready to sell because they're not making enough money. EBITDA, their EBITDA is too low. You didn't even know what EBITDA was, right?
I did not.
And you didn't need to. You just knew that you had
No.
the money to spend, right?
I knew what money we were making at the end of the year.
But for the people that are listening out there that might own a business, this is one of the biggest concerns that you have. Am I prepared to sell? What do I look like to an outsider? Do I want to let them in? These are all natural things. I can tell you this: we've told companies in a half hour that once we look at your financial records, maybe a year or two back, if you're ready for sale or not. And if not, we can get you there, right? So if you weren't ready, you know what we would have told you? We would have said, Landon, look, you need to do this, and we can help you do it. And this time next year, you'll be in a position where you're appropriately ready for sale. So, you might not be ready for sale. You might want to sell but not ready. You might not be ready and we want to sell. Whatever it is, we can handle it. But your relationship now, your friends,
Absolutely.
You got them to the table. Explain that.
He's like an extension of our business. It's like a partner that I can rely on and gives me advice. He's just very beneficial on the acquisition, in that he represented us, and a lot of things they might have been asking for, that was not necessary. This is what's necessary. This is what you're going to get.
I love that about you. You haven't talked. You haven't said anything. You just listening. We're talking about you. Taxes.
He's very modest.
Taxes, right? Things that matter. You've done so many deals that look, this is BS. This is BS. This matters.
Right.
We need to improve this. Let's talk about this and change that. I sold my business years ago. I didn't have a you. I didn't have a me. And I left money on the table. And I'm not crying poor about it, but I do know that you brought value to the deal. Talk about the difference between the sale price and what you actually get.
Well, there's an offer price, which usually is an opening bid. It's not where you expect to end up. So once the offer price is on the table, then we have a sense of, can we push this number? And we're able to do that.
And you did it on his deal.
Yes, for sure.
And you helped him, by the way, you crafted some things. You helped him on the tax end too, because if you get $100, Uncle Sam's gonna take some of that. But there's creative ways, and there's smart ways, and totally legit ways to
maximize the net proceeds.
That's efficient. It's efficiency. But the reality is, I'm a bean counter. Landon does the hard part. He makes the beans. The easy part is counting the beans.
Again, he's very modest.
He said that earlier. He goes, "It's because you got." No, it's because of what you did.
No, I think you
we
guys
were the conduit. So what I guess our message is that you don't have to have all your ducks in a row to explore selling your business. There's a lot of avenues, even if it's just an exit plan, because you guys do those too. So,
yes.
Any other advice that you would give potential owners, entrepreneurs, about how they should look at the future?
Well, the biggest piece of advice I would give is always be ready to sell your business. Treat it like it's ready for sale every day, because there's nothing to be really injured in your company if you run it that way.
That's correct. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
One last thing I want to ask you about: a lot of potential sellers, and we deal with them. What's an add back? I mean, what are you talking about, an add back? Add backs, by definition, are things that will not reoccur once a sale is consummated. What type of? That's EBITDA, right? That's part of EBITDA. If you can add back things that won't happen next year.
Right. So they're non-recurring post-transaction for the most part. EBITDA is already one number, which includes the add backs for EBITDA. Those components, but then you might have a good example. Is my favorite one is Ravens tickets. So I have Ravens tickets, and post-transaction, I'm not going to have Ravens tickets. Well, the buyer says, yes, you will. That's how you keep your customers happy.
Right.
So the add backs that my clients think are add backs really aren't sometimes, and there are other places to go to get those add backs. Right. And understand how the buyer looks at an add back. It's not the same as the seller.
And that is what he does. Okay, he's really good at that. Here's another thing. When an owner says, "Well, because we've seen them all. We had a guy turn down a big deal, and then when the company withdrew their offer, he said, no, we'll do it. You can't do that. You can't do that. One of the things that we have to do is we have to maximize what the seller can get, what the seller can keep. Okay.
Yes.
At the same time, we'll never get there if we don't convince you, if it's a convincing thing, if that's the right word, that you're better off doing it this way because. So what we did for you is Larry set up a spreadsheet, said, here's what you're making, right? And here's what's going to accumulate, here's what you're paying in taxes, all the stuff. And then if you get this lump sum over here and you invest it with a minimal return, this is what you get, and some. Did that make a difference?
It made complete financial sense.
Yeah.
And for me to be able to get the equity out for myself was huge.
So that's a good way to put it. You got your equity out of your business because you deal with hundreds of construction companies. The hardest thing is what?
Well, the equity is not something you can write a check for, right? Because it's accounts receivable, it's retainage, it's under and over billings, etc. So there's never equity that you can take out of the business until there's a transaction.
Right. And before we let you go, you've dealt with private equity firms, you've dealt with VC firms, you've dealt with public companies. Any differences that you see in the way they do business?
Well, the public companies and any of the ones you mentioned that are actually in the trade or in the business or in the industry are, in my opinion, buying more value than the firm who is making a financial buy, and they just want to invest X billions of dollars to get a return. So once you introduce someone that's in your business, the synergies that they can get, because now you're sharing, let's say, buying power and manpower and management power, they can pay a premium for a business like Landon had, right? The other guys can't pay a premium because they're not operating. They can only get a return from what you've been doing anyway.
Right.
So we prefer the more strategic deals.
That's a good word to use, a strategic buy, because IVP that bought you
Growth.
is in the space.
Correct.
They understand the space, and we're going to get to that as soon as we take a break. So we're going to take a break here now, and we'll be back with more of the Landon Royals story. Larry, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks,
Thank you, Landon.
Thank you.
Hey, I wanted to introduce you to a friend of over 15 years, a fellow contractor, Marvin Jackson. He is the owner and president of the CFP Group based in Baltimore, a subcontractor. Marvin, why don't you explain to the audience what it is that you do?
Yes, I've been in business over 30 years. I do flooring, carpentry, fire stop, insulation, and other specialty trades.
So, I used to do a lot of those things back in the day. What makes you and I different? And I think I know what the answer is.
I am an MBE certified contractor in the state of Maryland, DC, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina.
So, for all you contractors out there, I got to tell you that this is important, because you can kill two birds with one stone with one call. You call a contractor who can actually do the work and at the same time provide you with the MBE credits that you need by contract wherever you're working. So again, it's a great service that you provide. Tell the people how they can get hold of you.
You can reach me at my email, which is cfpgroup1@gmail.com, or you can call me directly on my cell, 410-977-8568.
So I rarely endorse, but I'm doing it today because Marvin is the real deal. If you need a good subcontractor and MBE credits, or one or the other, call Marvin. Don't hesitate. Thank you, Marvin.
Thank you, Dave.
Welcome back. We're here with Landon Royals, the former owner, and you are still the president of Royals Commercial. So we met, we talked, you met Vic Verma, you got comfortable with the next steps. That's all you did, right?
Correct.
We got Larry involved. He cleaned up your books so then you were presentable and you knew, you kind of knew where you were, and we could, value you. So, or they could value you. Anyway,
Yes.
Let's talk about the LOI. What happened? Tell us how that happened.
They basically sent me a letter with the offer and asked for a 120-day period to do due diligence, and asked me not to present myself to any other companies to be acquired.
So in other words, the LOI it's non-binding, and it just prohibited you from marketing yourself during that time.
That's correct.
How long did it take from the time that you got the LOI to the time they closed? Do you remember?
I'm going to say 4 to 5 months.
Okay, 4 to 5 months.
Yes.
So it can be as short as 120 days or as long as you want it to be. We don't want it to be long, ever, because if it's long, it's probably not going to happen.
Right. It was over the holidays, so that was part of it.
Yeah, it was. It was through
Thanksgiving and Christmas, so it kind of slowed the process down a touch.
So typically it's like a 3-month thing, right?
Yes.
But depending on the time of year. So the LOI, everybody, including me, I remember when I saw it, was like, how am I going to tell my staff? Like, it was a big deal. Did that concern you?
That was a big concern of mine. This is my brother who runs our field, who wasn't an owner, but saw life forever there, as well as the employees. I was very nervous about telling them, and then we have such great culture, so I feared a company coming in and changing that. and maybe making me get rid of certain employees. So it was, again, the fear of the unknown. So what that guy would look like that's going to come in and that I would be reporting to, so to speak. So just losing control.
Right. So every entrepreneur is concerned with change, right? And you forget the money for now, right? It's like, what happens to your people? What happens to your legacy?
Correct.
And I remember the movie Wall Street way back when, right? And the days of the arbitrage, and they come in and they would cut staff and they would just skinny up for a year or two. Like Larry mentioned before, some firms just want to resell, so they want to cut costs. That's not what we're talking about here. Did they cut anybody?
They did not cut anybody. Nothing changed. It was very refreshing. The transition. I'm sure. But finally, what I did is I brought everyone together. Once I saw that it was going to happen, I went one-on-one with my leaders, and then I pulled our whole field together. At that point, it was probably 50 guys, and I just explained to them what was going on and that nothing was going to change. So what did you hear from me? As a matter of fact, day one, they all got raises. So it was just a great transition for us and as a team, and they've been able to grow. And to me, I didn't look at it as the end. I looked at it as a start for us to grow to a $30 million company. And that's the road that we're on right now.
So that's amazing. I'm glad you said it that way. It's not the end of something, it's the beginning of something else. And we all live life one time, but how many different things can you do? So what you did is you decided to sell your business. You got paid. You got 90% of your money. I know this. You got 90% of your money on the day of closing, and you're almost done with your 2-year thing. Nothing much has changed in your company. You do report to somebody, right?
Yes.
But for your people, it hasn't been a bad thing at all, has it?
It has not been a bad thing for them at all.
I think it may create opportunity for some people that want to grow past what Landon might be able to do, right?
That's correct.
Because you have a risk tolerance.
We do.
Now their tolerance is probably bigger. They got bigger pockets. They got opportunities for growth.
Correct.
Which is
scopes.
you're in right now. They help
Absolutely.
you, grow your business. So that's cool. What about your customers? What did you tell your customers? How did they respond?
We basically explained that we were acquired and that we had a big brother that we were partnering with that was going to help make us stronger as a company, and that nothing was going to change. That I was still running the company, the employees were the same, and it was seamless for the most part.
So he forgot to mention that he thanked his customers, and this is important because they had a lot to do with your success. And it's important to say that because the customers, I used to worry, what are my customers going to think? They were happy for me.
Absolutely.
And if people care about you, they're going to be happy for you. If they care about themselves, maybe not. In this case, they would be, because now you're the same guy. Did you tell me you're staying?
Yeah.
They love that, right?
Absolutely.
They love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So looking at it now post-sale, what is the biggest difference between you as a private owner and you now as a president being paid? Let's talk about lifestyle. Has your lifestyle changed?
Yeah, it's just been great. For me, it took a lot of the stress off of my plate. Cash, mainly. We were a small bank financing jobs carrying $2 to $3 million in receivables. That was one stress level. So it's allowed us to focus more on customer service and sales and the clients, and a lot of the headaches that go along with being a sole owner have gone away. So it's been a great partnership. Our payables are now gone. Our payroll is now gone. It's all done by them. So it's just been a very positive experience for all of us.
So that's kind of neat in that, and Larry brought this up before, they're in your space. They understand what you do. They don't know what you do, but they understand kind of what you do, and you're in the industry. They provide support, financial and accounting and otherwise, right? That maybe you'd have to struggle with. But you said something earlier. You said that the stress. I got to tell you, in all honesty, I call him Thurston Howell III. That is a shameless plug for Gilligan's Island. But if you know who Thurston Howell III is, there he is sitting there.
Created by Dave.
But, so you're reporting to somebody, and I understand there was a period of time when it didn't go like you wanted it to. What happened? Talk about that.
Year two, basically when we were acquired, they put us under one of their commercial divisions. We were a branch, and we're a little bit different in how they operate. So they came and tried to make some changes with how we operated day to day, and then I pushed back. It created some stress for our field director, Stu, but we've been able to work through it, and they listened to me, and and basically have said, listen, run it like you ran it before you were acquired. And it's taken a lot of that headache part where they were trying to change us in certain areas out of the way.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we're able to keep moving like we moved in the past.
Yeah, and you've been a bright spot for them. I know that. I speak to the CEO, and that's all good. But our job, Larry and my job, and your job, is to let them know who you are,
Yes.
what you do, how you operate, and that stuff happens before you sell. You mentioned the word culture. The culture has to fit.
It does.
Okay,
It's very
and
important.
there's nothing worse than, you can sell your business. I've had deals where a guy, one guy was $30 million, and after 6 months he was gone, and he left his retainers on the table. He didn't care. He walked away with $27 million, right?
Yes.
But he wasn't happy. The acquirer wasn't happy, and that was not a good fit. Most of them are. You're a great one. So, if you were to sum up any other concerns that you had that were dispelled, what would they be?
And concerns about being acquired?
Yeah.
The main one was just them coming in and changing things and how we operate. To me, it's about our employees. And to me, it wasn't about the money. It's about them. And as I said, I've had guys that have been with me 25 to 30 years. And seeing them grow and have families. I mean, I've met their kids when they were little. It was just the fact that they've been able to continue to grow and get bonuses and succeed. They were nervous, very nervous when we first were acquired because they thought I was going to be gone quickly.
Right.
But they've seen me, this is in year 3, and I'm not going anywhere. So it's just been refreshing that they didn't come in and take anything from my guys.
That's an awesome way to say it. As we age,
Yes.
we get concerned about our legacy. What did we leave behind? And you just mentioned that a lot of these people were part of your success.
Absolutely. It's
And
why we were successful and why we were acquired, because of my employees.
Without a doubt. Your leadership, their work, all the combination of things, but that doesn't have to end. Now, at some point in time, if you don't sell, you got to do something with it, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
like you chose to go this route, which is a good way to go. If you were not ready, we would have told you, and we would have helped you get ready if you wanted to get ready.
You would have given me a roadmap
A roadmap.
on how to
Exactly.
where to go to make it happen.
If you were not ready emotionally, that's okay. You're
Yes.
not ready. We're not going to
Absolutely.
push it. We can't.
Right.
We don't want to, right? The culture has to be right. So, in closing, I think that you are representative of a company who has a good core culture, who was for whatever reason got placed with another company with the
Timing
same
was
culture.
good.
The timing was really good.
The timing was really good.
But I want to congratulate you on that. I know, the good news is, you mentioned earlier, you're not going anywhere.
No.
Now, you have a choice. Your non-compete's almost up, right?
Yeah, March 2023.
It's up and you're talking about renegotiating, staying.
I am.
That's awesome.
I'm excited. I also appreciate you and Larry. It wouldn't have happened without you guys.
Well,
And you guys helped me get the most net proceeds that I could have acquired. So thanks.
well, we thank you, and I wish you the best of luck in the future.
Thank you, Dave.
All
Appreciate
right.
it. Thanks for your time.
Landon. So again, thank you for joining us, and until we meet again, which will be next week, Season 4, Episode 2, stay safe and stay tuned. So follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Elevate Industry. Check out my YouTube channel at Commercial Construction, Elevate the Industry. Visit my website, adicorp.com, adicorp.com. Go to LinkedIn, search for David Procida, hit connect and follow me. Please rate, review, and comment on this episode, and I look forward to seeing you next week.